Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. I must return home late Friday evening around 7 o'clock. Charles Byrne and I were on a business trip to present our company's products to potential major clients. At first glance, everything seemed to be going well, at least from our perspective. However, we were expecting definitive results in a few weeks. At 9 in the morning on Friday, we received word that the scheduled meeting was postponed. There was no point in staying, so we headed back. There were a few things waiting for me at home, things Samantha had been constantly reminding me about. The thought of coming home earlier than expected brought relief. I would have time to finally get everything done. Charles dropped me off at home around 3 in the afternoon, and without wasting time I changed into work clothes and grabbed my tools. A few years ago, we had expanded the house by adding an extra bedroom and bathroom. This expansion gave our 2 children their own rooms, although they weren't home at the time. When they were little, managing everything in a confined space was difficult. To save money, we built the addition on an elevated platform rather than a full foundation. In the bathroom closet, I installed a hatch to access the crawl space beneath the house. There was also a removable panel in the backyard, through which you could enter or exit if necessary. To open the hatch, you had to slightly close the closet doors so they wouldn't obstruct its movement. After gathering my tools, I headed into the crawl space under the bedroom. It was about 1 meter high, but it was still cramped and uncomfortable to move around. I crawled toward the pipes beneath the main bathroom, checking the traps I had set. The rat poison I'd laid out remained almost untouched and was still effective. A year ago, we had a problem with red squirrels. I never told Samantha about it, but I bought a shotgun and spent the whole weekend downstairs, imagining myself as a sheriff in the Wild West, hunting down those pesky squirrels. Samantha had gone to her sister's, so the house was entirely mine. I must have fired at least 12 shots at those critters. When the weekend ended, I got tired of it and sealed up the hole they were entering through, leaving the poison there just in case. Now I was under the tub, trying to remove a rusted drain that was slowing the water flow so much that the tub nearly overflowed every time we showered. No pipe cleaners had worked, so I decided either to clean or replace the pipe. But first, I had to loosen the old connections. I was almost done when I suddenly heard footsteps upstairs, breaking the silence. It was too early for Samantha to be home, and no one else should have been in our bedroom. As I fumbled with the pipe, I suddenly heard the sound of running water, and a small flood rushed down from above. I quickly headed for the hatch to warn Samantha that she couldn't use the water. As I approached the closet, I heard a man's voice, and alarm shot through me. My stomach clenched. Cautiously, I lifted myself up from the hatch to peek into the closet. The doors were slightly ajar, keeping me hidden. Through the narrow crack, I saw Samantha calmly undressing. But my heart raced not because of her relaxed demeanor. Robert Murphy was standing at the foot of our bed. Realizing that I was about to witness something I would never be able to forget, my pulse quickened. If I didn't act right now, I would witness my supposedly faithful wife betraying me right before my eyes. "I love being with you, Samantha," Robert said with a smile, taking off his shirt and unbuttoning his pants. Frozen in shock, I realized I was already too late. Samantha, now completely naked, climbed onto the bed, laughing cheerfully. "We have about an hour before I need to clean up and get ready for Michael to come home," she said in a light-hearted tone. "An hour is enough for a few rounds," Robert replied with a smirk. I had always considered myself a reasonable person, but at that moment, rage boiled inside me. My face burned and my knees buckled, that overwhelming sensation when you're pushed to your absolute limit. "Looks like you've thought this through, Robert," Samantha grinned, completely at ease in her betrayal. "When I get everything sorted out, you can do whatever you want with me. You know very well how much I like what you do. Just make sure it stays unnoticed. If he ever finds out, he'll go crazy. I don't want to hurt him." "You're such a fool," Robert smirked. "Do you really believe that? Or are you just trying to convince me? If you truly cared about him, you wouldn't be lying here with me completely naked. You don't care about Michael just like I don't." "That's not true, Robert. Samantha objected. He's a wonderful husband, a loving father, and provides us with everything we need. I just want a little more excitement in life. I don't want to lose him. I love him. Well, I'm not complaining, Robert shrugged, but you sure have a strange way of showing your love. Samantha laughed. Oh, Robert, that was good. I love Michael. She hesitated and then quietly added, but I love you too. I want both of you. A cold, anxious calm washed over me, the kind someone probably feels before something unimaginably terrible. Let's get on with it already, Samantha whispered, breathless with excitement. While Robert indulged in his passion with her, I quietly slipped down to the basement and went through the hidden exit. Walking around the house, I noticed Robert's SUV parked in the driveway. Samantha must have come with him since her car wasn't there. Grabbing a hammer and a cordless drill, I crouched by the rear wheel and drilled into it. The air hissed out and the tire deflated with a soft pop. One by one, I punctured all 4 tires, even making sure to destroy the spare. Then, I took the hammer and smashed the headlights and windows. Each strike filled me with grim satisfaction. The destruction was oddly calming. My neighbor always kept a spare key hidden on the porch, and he allowed me to use his house when needed. Once inside, I picked up the phone and dialed Robert's number. We were well acquainted. Robert and his wife had been close friends of ours, or so I thought. Samantha worked with him, and I never realized how close they had become. Wrapping the phone in a towel to muffle my voice, I pretended to be a concerned neighbor when Robert's wife, Elizabeth, answered. I told her that someone had been spotted damaging her husband's car outside Michael Smith's house. After hanging up, I returned home, taking the hammer and drill with me. Leaving anything behind that could trace back to me would have been foolish. My mind wasn't entirely clear, but I wasn't acting impulsively. I knew I'd be the prime suspect. Faithful husbands always are. I sneaked back into the basement and retrieved the shotgun I had stored on a shelf, sealed in a plastic bag to keep it in perfect condition. The phone kept ringing insistently, but Samantha was too preoccupied to notice. The voicemail kicked in, but I couldn't make out the message. It was probably Elizabeth already on her way. Climbing up to the hatch, I could hear the sounds of their activities: moans, heavy breathing, and the rhythmic creaking of the bed. I cracked the door of the closet just enough to see into the bedroom. Robert and Samantha were completely absorbed in their affair, oblivious to everything around them. They were nearing their climax. I stood just 10 feet away. With grim precision, I aimed the shotgun. The blast hit Robert right in the groin. The sound of impact was horrific. His scream was immediate, his body jerking violently in agony. He lunged forward, slamming Samantha's head into the headboard with a sickening thud. Her pain was nothing compared to Robert's torment. Watching him writhe, clutching his mutilated body, I quickly hid the gun, slipped through the panel, and left the house. I closed the panel behind me and calmly walked across the yard without looking back. As I strolled through the neighborhood, my mind was remarkably clear. I headed toward the pub just a few blocks from home. After an exhausting day, I decided I deserved the luxury of enjoying a few bottles of beer. Few could boast the same mastery of weapons as I could. Savoring a cold sip, my thoughts drifted to the chaos likely unfolding just a few blocks from my hotel. It was nearing 5 in the evening when my phone unexpectedly vibrated. Elizabeth's name flashed on the screen. "Michael, where are you?" Her voice was calm, though there was a trace of urgency. I replied smoothly, lying without hesitation. "We're driving on the highway. What happened?" She didn't delay with her response. "I'm at the hospital. Robert is in surgery, and Samantha has been admitted to the emergency room." Her words caught me off guard. "What? What are you talking about?" "They weren't in a car accident, if that's what you're thinking," Elizabeth clarified. "It's much more complicated. I can't explain much over the phone, but Samantha is under observation. They fear she may fall into a coma." The mention of a coma tightened my nerves. "She has a concussion," Elizabeth continued. "I just wanted you to know where she is, so it wouldn't be a surprise when you return." I responded cautiously. "Thank you, Elizabeth. I don't usually lose my composure, but I appreciate the warning." "I'm heading home to get my car, and then going to the hospital, she said. You'll see Robert's car in the driveway. It's wrecked. The tires are flat. The entire car's a mess, but you'll be able to drive around it, she warned. Sounds like a total disaster, I muttered. If needed, I'll take Samantha's car. Her car isn't there, Elizabeth interrupted. The story is much longer, and I'd prefer to explain everything when you get here. With that, our conversation ended. I sat there, contemplating the situation. None of this was what I had anticipated, and irritation began to simmer within me. As the evening progressed and the sky darkened, I finally decided to head back home. When I arrived, a small crowd had gathered near my driveway, gawking at the wrecked car. I ignored them, cutting through neighboring yards and slipping into the house through the back door. Entering the bedroom to change, I realized something was seriously wrong. The room was in disarray, furniture overturned, clothes scattered everywhere, and dark stains on the carpet. That's when it hit me. It seemed I had done more damage to Robert than I had realized. I couldn't suppress a smirk as I recalled him writhing in pain, clutching himself. He had enjoyed his time with my wife and had apparently decided to test his luck with me. To be honest, he was fortunate I hadn't brought a gun. A man who dares to have an affair with another's wife must be prepared for the consequences. By the time I reached the hospital, it was around 9 p.m. The people waiting outside, vultures, as I called them, looked almost gleeful at my arrival. After what seemed like endless paperwork and insurance matters, I quietly muttered to myself, "Why is everything in Spanish here? This is America. We speak English here." Finally, I was led to the room where Samantha lay. She looked fragile, much weaker than I had expected. When our eyes met, she managed a faint smile, nervously fidgeting with her hands. "How are you holding up, Samantha?" I asked, my voice softer than I had intended. "Does it hurt a lot?" "My head hurts, but the doctors are just being cautious," she replied quietly. "They want to make sure there's no internal bleeding or anything serious, but I'm feeling a little better." Then, almost shyly, she asked, "Did you happen to bring me any clothes? They're planning to discharge me." "Samantha, I didn't bring anything for you. Why don't you just wear what you had on when you got here?" My words came out harsher than I intended. "Where are your clothes?" Her response was confused, full of uncertainty. I wasn't wearing anything. I think I slipped and hit my head in the shower. The last thing I remember is getting ready for a bath, and then I was in an ambulance. I didn't have anything on," she almost shouted, her voice trembling with panic. This had to be humiliating. "Yes, I understand," I replied, though my sympathy felt distant. "But what the hell happened to Robert's car? Why is it parked in our driveway? And where is your car? And why is our bedroom such a mess? What happened with Robert?" I bombarded her with questions, but Samantha's face remained blank. "I don't know, Michael. Please stop asking. I have a headache. I feel nauseous. I just can't," she begged, her voice shaking. "Yeah, I feel the same," I muttered, showing my irritation. "Just rest. I'll be here when the doctors let you go." I turned away, needing to find Elizabeth. Eventually, I found her in the ICU. As I approached, she gave me a tired smile. "He's stable, Michael. They had to remove his left testicle, but he's resting now," she whispered. "If he makes it through the night without complications, they'll move him to a regular room in the morning," she added softly. "Oh God," I breathed, stunned. "He lost. How did this happen?" "We didn't get a clear version from either Robert or Samantha," Elizabeth explained, shaking her head. "Some guy called me, said he was your neighbor. He mentioned that someone had wrecked Robert's car in your yard. I tried calling Samantha, but she didn't answer, so I left a message and drove over. When I arrived, Robert was still in the car, completely out of it. Some random guy had stopped to help." Elizabeth paused for a moment, collecting her thoughts. "This man said that Robert was completely naked, running around the car and shouting. Then Robert jumped back into the car, insisting he was driving to the hospital. The guy took his keys, afraid that Robert was either on something or something else, especially with a flat tire. He didn't want Robert driving in that state." "And then what?" I asked, feeling the weight of the situation intensify. I think Robert got hurt on the broken glass in the car. There were shards everywhere. He was bleeding from his back and... Well, from there, Elizabeth continued, her voice steady despite the horrifying details. We called an ambulance, and just then, that man cursed. I looked up and saw Samantha stumbling down the driveway, completely naked. What happened next? I asked, my shock growing. She was incoherent, Elizabeth admitted. She was holding her head, groaning. When I got her to sit down, I saw a huge bump on her forehead. I've been with Robert ever since. Did you talk to her? Yes. She says her memory is foggy, I explained, still trying to piece together the whole story. We grabbed coffee and continued discussing the bizarre situation. Elizabeth mentioned that Robert remembered eating sushi that day. He thinks maybe the food was bad or someone spiked their drinks, she said, though her voice sounded doubtful. I've had bad food before too, but I've never lost my memory or, well, a body part because of it, I said, shaking my head. Does he really believe the sushi caused the accident and Samantha's injury? Elizabeth gave a weak smile. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I can't think of anything more logical. Their behavior is so strange. Maybe Robert really crashed the car while in some sort of trance. Maybe, I muttered, though nothing about this situation seemed normal. I felt the weight of something much larger looming over me, realizing that I had been drawn into a situation far more serious than I had anticipated. If Robert took all the blame, I could avoid any legal consequences. I kept up the act of being angry, knowing I wouldn't regret it, especially if it allowed me to get away clean. Make sure you tell the police if they ask, I warned him. There's probably no law against wrecking your own car. We spent about an hour trying to figure everything out. Then, a little after 11 p.m., I got a call saying Samantha needed to stay overnight at the hospital for observation. After saying goodbye to Elizabeth, I left, feeling a pang of sympathy for her. She didn't deserve to be dragged into this mess, though on the other hand, neither did I. But to be honest, maybe I did deserve it. After all, I had shot Robert in the left testicle. Sleep wouldn't come, so I finished fixing the drain, cleaned up my tools, then threw the drill, the shotgun, and the hammer into the river, like some petty criminal. The police hadn't come after me yet, but I acted as if they had, just to cover my tracks. Once done, I tidied up the bedroom and changed the sheets. I also prepared the guest room and stayed there for the night. I was still sound asleep when the phone rang at 8 a.m. It was Samantha. Michael, they're discharging me, she said. Can you come pick me up and bring some clothes? I picked her up, helped her to the bedroom since she was moving slowly, put her in pajamas, and laid her in bed. She slept most of the day. Around noon, Elizabeth called to say Robert was going to be fine. He'd be discharged in a few days. I sat with that information for a while, realizing that I didn't care whether he recovered or not. He was still the same scumbag he'd always been. After ending the call, I went to check on Samantha. How's Robert? What happened to him? She asked. No one's really sure, I replied. He'll recover, but there's something important he's missing now. I watched her reaction closely. She simply closed her eyes, let a few tears fall, and drifted back to sleep. Later in the evening, I made her some soup and helped her eat. Her complexion had improved, and she was talking a bit more. But none of that changed anything. She still didn't say anything significant. No mentions of how she and Robert had ruined everything. No confession about the affair. Are you going to bed soon, Michael? She asked softly, with a barely noticeable smile. I miss you, she added. Her words lingered in the air, but I couldn't erase the image of her with him. I still heard her telling Robert he could do whatever he wanted with her. At that moment, I realized I might never share a bed with her again. No, I replied. I'm going to watch some TV. Rest up. You'll feel better in the morning, I said, turning off the light and heading to the guest room. I fell asleep quickly. The next morning, sunlight filled the windows, and when I woke up, I saw Samantha standing by the bed looking slightly better. Why did you sleep here, Michael? She asked. I wanted you with me. I think I'll stay here a few more nights, I said. You need to focus on regaining your strength and your memory. I don't want to be a burden. She looked at me, sadness in her eyes, before quietly leaving the room. I didn't have the strength to meet her gaze or say anything more. It seemed she sensed that. In the end, the police concluded that Robert had lost control and trashed his own car. He didn't even try to deny it. I had a feeling he knew that if he started denying it, the truth would come out, and the affair with Samantha would become public knowledge. It was easier for him to let everyone think he had a nervous breakdown or was poisoned by something. Samantha showed no interest in his condition during his recovery, so the day after he was discharged from the hospital, I went to check on him. Elizabeth came with me. "Robert," I called him with a smirk, "you'd better get well soon, or you'll never beat me at golf." He looked at me, his gaze lingering as if he was trying to figure out whether I knew about the mess he had gotten himself into. I looked him in the eyes calmly, not giving anything away. After what felt like an eternity, he finally responded, "Of course, Michael, if you say so." It became clear to me that when a person loses part of themselves, they become more cautious, more careful. He had changed, become quieter, more thoughtful. Samantha didn't return to work until Tuesday. I drove her there because her car was still in the office parking lot. She didn't explain anything about what had happened, and I didn't ask, not after that heated conversation we had the first night in the hospital. I began to wonder if I had jumped to conclusions too quickly, whether I should try to fix things. I had invested so much in our 15-year marriage and her. Until the day I found Robert in our bed with her, I believed we had something unbreakable. People make mistakes, I told myself, and many marriages go through hard times. But the next day, as I sat at the kitchen table sorting the mail, I found a letter from the hospital. It was crystal clear. Samantha had contracted gonorrhea, and I needed to get tested immediately. She had to start treatment without delay. I read the letter twice before handing it to her. Looking back, I shouldn't have been surprised. Robert had never hidden his attraction to other women. I used to dismiss it as harmless jokes. But now I saw everything clearly. He wasn't just talking. He was exactly the man I once thought he was joking about. And the fact that he was a one-armed con man somehow made me chuckle. As Samantha read the letter, I could almost see the calculations happening in her head. Was she wondering if I could have infected her? Could I have cheated on her without knowing it and passed the infection to her? If my test came back positive, she could spin the situation to make me the villain in all of this. But the truth is, I had always been faithful. If anyone crossed the line, it was her. "Well, it seems you didn't just come back with fond memories from your little adventure," she said with a smirk. "No wonder you're sleeping in the guest room." At that moment, everything became crystal clear to me. She didn't regret it. She was calculating. She wanted to make it seem like I was the guilty one, and she was the victim. She didn't even consider that I had been faithful all along. People tend to project their flaws onto others. A thief thinks everyone steals. A cheater thinks everyone cheats. That Saturday morning, I placed my negative test results on the kitchen table in front of her. Her hands trembled as she picked up the paper to read. Then I handed her another document. This time, it was divorce papers. For the first time in a long while, I saw a genuine reaction from her. She begged, said that Robert had seduced her, but her heart had always belonged to me, and only me. While she was pleading with me to reconsider, my phone rang. I answered, and Samantha immediately fell silent. It was Elizabeth on the other end of the line. "Michael, I got my test results. Do you remember why Robert lost one of his testicles?" "Well, I tested positive for gonorrhea. Did you get tested? And what about Samantha?" I paused for a moment, considering how much of the truth Elizabeth deserved. "No, Elizabeth," I replied. "I'm clean. But Samantha, she's not." "Isn't this the most absurd turn of events?" I replied, catching her question. "Absurd is putting it mildly, Michael. It's downright outrageous," Elizabeth grumbled. "I've already started getting professional help and made my decision. I'm going to break ties with that madman for good. Oh, and Michael, by the way, do you happen to have a gun?" "I really need to finish packing, Elizabeth. I wish you all the best," I said before ending the conversation. Samantha didn't just destroy our 15-year marriage, she ruined her own life and Elizabeth's marriage. I deeply regret wasting 15 years of my life on that wretched woman. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel. Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. Sophia was the first to express her concern. Is everything okay between you and Mom? It seems like you're drifting apart. I tried to give her a reassuring smile, though she was already 23 and told her everything was fine. But as I said those words, doubt started creeping in. Was everything really okay? I had always trusted Susan, my wife of 27 years, without question. But Sophia wasn't wrong. Something was off. No marriage is perfect, but ours had always seemed solid. At least that's what I thought. However, after Sophia moved out, it felt like Susan and I had lost a part of the closeness we once had. I made a lot of efforts, suggested dinners, weekend trips together, or just spending more time with each other. Her response was always something like, "That sounds great, Reese, but I'm booked for the next few weeks. How about next month?" It seemed like Susan was more involved in her social events, charity functions, and hobbies than in our relationship. She often had lunch or dinner out, without me. And if even Sophia noticed the distance between us, perhaps things were worse than I had imagined. Susan always looked dazzling, stylish, and radiated warmth wherever she went. As for me, I wasn't in bad shape either. Successful career, stable income, and I kept myself fit, even though I was nearing 52. My thoughts drifted back to happier times. I remembered our wedding day, almost perfect, except for the slightly awkward best man speech, which included some wild stories from my bachelor party. Funnily enough, I don't remember much from that night. But one thing stuck out clearly. At Susan's bachelorette party, there had been a strange moment. Her best friend, Alexander Brown, was there with her and her girlfriends. At the time, I didn't think much of it. They had always been close, and for some reason, I assumed that Alexander might be gay. There had never been any signs of a romantic partner, male or female. They often went out for drinks or lunch together, and though it bothered me a little, I eventually decided to bring it up with Susan. She brushed off my concerns, assuring me there was nothing romantic between them and there never would be. I had no reason not to believe her. Susan always took pride in her honesty and straightforwardness. After our wedding, we moved to a new city for better career opportunities, and life moved on. We both made new friends, and I wasn't opposed to Susan seeing Alexander less frequently, although they continued to keep in touch from time to time. The years passed, and 4 years after the wedding, our daughter Sophia was born, our only child. Susan easily embraced her role as a mother, and it seemed we were both content. But after Sophia moved out, Alexander found a job near our home, and Susan seemed pleased to rekindle her connection with him. Their dinners and meetings became more frequent. Now, I couldn't shake Sophia's words from my mind. She was right. There was a distance between Susan and me. I felt neglected, and Sophia's absence didn't help. Looking at photos of Susan and Alexander on social media didn't bring me peace either. Some comments even asked if Alexander was her husband. Everything reached its peak at Susan's 49th birthday party, which we hosted at our house. That evening, Susan hardly left Alexander's side, laughing and chatting with their mutual friends all night. To an outsider, it might have looked like they were a couple. Even our neighbor, Madison, noticed. She quietly approached me, her face showing concern. "Reese, are you okay? You seem a little distant tonight." I tried to brush it off, but Madison persisted, and eventually I opened up. "Do you think everything is okay between Susan and me?" I asked uncertainly. "I know Alexander is just a friend, but if you and I spent that much time together, wouldn't we become something more?" Madison thought for a moment. "Maybe," she answered cautiously. "Friendships can evolve." Shortly after, Susan approached me, her gaze sharp. "What were you talking about with Madison? And what's this feeling like you're being ignored?" I sighed. "I just said that tonight my wife found time for everyone, except me. We're hosting guests, Reese. I can't be by your side the entire time." "But you weren't with anyone else either," I countered. You spent the whole evening with Alexander. Her eyes flashed with irritation. What are you even talking about? You're being ridiculous and childish. We're just friends. His gender doesn't matter, she insisted firmly. Really? I replied, tension evident in my voice. Because it seems to me there's something more between you two. I can't shake the feeling that you're hiding something else. There's nothing like that, she snapped, irritation flashing in her eyes. You're blowing this out of proportion. She spun on her heel and left without another word. Perfect. Out of all days, I picked her birthday for an argument. Guilt washed over me, but the irritation still gnawed at me. We remained silent for the rest of the evening, and nothing changed in the following week. I tried to apologize, but my words felt hollow. Susan seemed completely unbothered. Then, in one of the rare moments we actually talked, she casually mentioned that Alexander had invited her for the weekend. Was she testing how far she could push it? The fact that I even thought that showed how broken our connection was. When trust is shattered, rebuilding it feels nearly impossible. Are you serious? After everything that's been going on between us, this is your choice? We're just friends who enjoy spending time together. It's not a big deal. I just need a little break, she explained calmly, as if that could make everything right. Really? I muttered bitterly. I suggested plenty of things for us to do, and you rejected every single one of them. But you made time for this, I added, feeling the irritation grow. When are you going to take a break from us? Susan lowered her eyes. We're going next weekend, to Milan. That hit hard. So you've already made up your mind, the city we dreamed about for years, and suddenly you find time. How convenient. Her voice softened as if she were trying to minimize the damage. Reese, I know you don't like it, but it's just a short trip. There's nothing romantic about it. There's nothing intimate between us. You can't dictate who I'm friends with. Honestly, your jealousy is the real issue here. I don't want to control you. I never did, I said, feeling my throat tighten with emotion. But yes, I am jealous. He's getting the best of you, your time, your energy, all of it. You're emotionally attached to him, and now, trips together too. You're misunderstanding everything. We're not dating. I love you, not him, she replied, almost defensively. Do you really love me? I asked, doubting. Because it doesn't feel that way. Do you talk to him about us? About our relationship? She hesitated, clearly flustered. Sometimes. He helps me understand your point of view, helps me think things through. And how's that working out? I said sarcastically. I doubt he sees things the way I do. You're even further away from me now than before. Do you talk to him about our intimate life too? Not really. Just briefly. Come on, Susan. Even you must see that's a line you shouldn't cross. That's personal. You share more with him than you do with me. It feels like you're in a relationship with him, not with me. That's not true, she replied with desperation in her voice. I'm still your wife, but I can't just abandon him. You're already leaving, I said coldly. You made the decision without me. Since when did my opinion stop mattering? You matter, she whispered, but the words felt hollow. No, what matters is you and Alexander, not me, I said. As the date of her departure approached, it seemed like even she started having doubts. But her resolve didn't waver. By the time she left that Friday morning, I was relieved to be at work, avoiding the awkward goodbye. Later, all I received was a simple message. A brief, impersonal farewell. I love you, and every moment we spend together is priceless to me. I'll be back before you even notice I'm gone. I'll call you later. Those were my last words to her, but when she left, a storm of emotions overwhelmed me. I hesitated, unsure whether I should go to a bar to drown out the noise in my head or visit my sister Tracy. We often argue, but when things get serious, she's always ready to defend me, even if it means redirecting her anger towards Susan for my sake. In the end, I did neither. Instead, I stayed home, alone with my thoughts, letting the silence seep into my mind as I reflected on the state of our marriage. Decisions had to be made. I knew it couldn't go on like this. That evening, Susan called. I almost didn't answer, but I picked up, trying to speak in a steady voice. Hello? Hi, dear. We arrived safely and the hotel is just amazing. I just wanted to let you know, she said warmly. Thank you for telling me, I replied, feeling my voice turn indifferent. At least now I know you're okay, I added after a pause. She continued, Today we'll spend the day exploring the city. Sounds like you're having fun, I mumbled, feeling the sting of her visiting places we once dreamed of going together. I'll make a wish for us to come here together someday, she said, trying to lift my spirits. It won't be the same now, Susan, I quietly said. This was something we were supposed to experience together. Please, Reese, don't start another argument, she sighed. I regret how things have turned out, and I'm sorry I left the way I did. But I can't stop thinking about you. I promise, nothing is happening between us. Nothing inappropriate. Her words sounded as if she were speaking to a child. But you're still in another country with another man, Susan. That means something, I threw back. Her voice grew irritated. You're just impossible. And then the call ended. Loneliness engulfed me. Saturday night passed with no further calls. Social media offered no relief. Milan looked enchanting, and scrolling through those posts only worsened my mood. Some of our relatives even asked where I was, and the answer was always the same. Out with friends for the weekend. Sophia, my daughter, saw the posts and called, shocked when I confirmed her mother was indeed in Milan with another man. I told her about my conversation with Susan, explaining how her mother had planned the trip despite my feelings. Upset, Sophia wanted to talk to her, but I insisted she stay out of it. It's complicated, Sophia, I said. Your mother thinks I'm just being overly suspicious, that I'm making a big deal out of nothing. Sophia hesitated. But Dad, maybe she's right. She's allowed to have friends. People travel with friends. Are you sure you're not just overreacting? I struggled to keep my frustration in check. Sophia, please, don't get involved. There's more going on here than you or your mother understand. When Susan returned home on Sunday, she tried to hug and kiss me, but I didn't respond warmly. I didn't push her away, but my reaction was cold, distant. We tried to talk, but the words didn't flow naturally. Everything felt strained. Conversations that once were easy and light had now turned into a battle. She looked as awkward as I felt. I'm sorry I didn't call yesterday. I was so down. I hate that we keep fighting. I missed you more than I can express, but I had every right to go on this trip. We need to have a serious talk, Reese, to figure out where we stand. Talk? Or are you just trying to make me see things from your perspective? I asked bitterly. What if I decided to go with Madison for a weekend to the Caribbean? How would you feel about that? Her expression showed I'd surprised her. That's not the same. Madison is divorced. And Alexander is single, I noted. So what? Madison has feelings for you, she retorted. Are you saying Alexander doesn't have feelings for you? I pressed, watching her discomfort. Has he ever told you he's in love with you? She looked shocked. What? No, we've never even thought about something like that. But there was uncertainty in her eyes. But you know he loves you, don't you? Riz stared at her intently, his voice tense. You understand what I'm saying, right? The way he pays attention to you, how he listens. There's clearly more going on than you're admitting. His words hung in the air, filled with unspoken truths. That's why I can't just let this go. Think about it. Feeling something for someone for so long, knowing it will never grow into anything more. You can't keep both of us in your life, Susan, he added, his tone even but tinged with frustration. If you keep him around, you're just holding on to the past. Who knows? Maybe this weekend he'll meet some charming woman and you'll be left clinging to him. It's affecting us. Right now, I feel like you're pushing me away. We've always been independent, strong people, Riz, Susan responded softly, but there was a defensive edge to her voice. We've never relied on each other for everything. But her answer barely touched the growing irritation inside him. He sighed bitterly, his thoughts spilling out in a surge of resentment. I can't accept that the woman who should care about me the most is putting her friend first. You spend so much energy on everyone else, especially Alexander and your girlfriends, and there's nothing left for us. When he showed up at our door and asked to come in, I was shocked. She's not here, Riz, he said when Alexander arrived at their doorstep. "She's at work." "I know," Alexander replied calmly. "I came to see you." Riz's suspicions deepened. "Of course, you're her confidant. I suppose you know everything we've been talking about." "She's my friend," Alexander said, trying to be reassuring. "You don't have to worry. If I were a woman, we wouldn't be having this conversation." His voice was steady, but Riz felt there was something more beneath the surface. "Don't fool yourself. Even if you think it means nothing, it's still a problem if we're drifting apart and no longer sharing our lives." Riz finally asked the question that had been tormenting him. "What do you two talk about?" Alexander shrugged slightly. "Oh, everything. Ideas, thoughts, plans, hopes. All of that, huh?" Riz's voice dripped with sarcasm. "And probably a lot more, too." Silence settled between them as Riz tried to process what had been said. "That's what I miss," he finally admitted. "We used to talk like that. Now it's all about the house, bills, family matters." Alexander listened quietly before noting, "You still seem to have a good time when you go out for dinner or lunch together." Riz nodded. "Yes, of course, I enjoy her company, but it's supposed to be fun. Do you know how many times I've tried to organize something romantic for her? But now it feels like I've lost the woman I used to dream about." Alexander paused, letting Riz's words sink in. Finally, Riz shook his head. "You have a better connection with her than I do." "Riz," Alexander urged, "just talk to her. Tell her how you really feel. She loves you. You know that." "I've tried." Riz's voice was full of frustration. "But she always reduces it to jealousy or control. She thinks I'm obsessed with sex or trying to dominate her. It hasn't helped. She's already gone." "Don't say that," Alexander insisted. "Susan would be devastated if she knew you felt this way. She truly loves you." Riz let out a bitter laugh. "I never thought it was this bad. I always thought it was just me being paranoid." Trying to help, Alexander suggested, "I could stop seeing her if that would help. I don't want to cause problems between you." Riz looked at him with a mix of gratitude and disappointment. "That's a generous offer, especially considering how much you care about her. But you'd be giving up something she doesn't even want to change. She chooses you every time." The reality of their situation hung over them like a heavy weight, impossible to ignore. "You're a better friend to her than she is a wife to me," Riz said quietly, but the truth was undeniable. After that, he walked Alexander to the door, his patience worn thin. "And Alexander," he added with a final warning, "don't come here again. Next time I won't be so polite." Later that evening, Susan approached Riz, her expression serious. "Alexander said he came to talk to you," she began cautiously. "He didn't mean to upset you. If he had known, he wouldn't have suggested that trip. He admitted he takes up too much of my time." Riz's face darkened. "So you told him everything we talked about, huh? And then what? You met with him today to discuss it all after our conversation? Now do you understand why I feel like a stranger in my own marriage?" But Susan saw things differently. She continued, still focused on Alexander, unaware of the growing rift between them. "When I tried to suggest that over time you might be able to overcome this, Alexander dismissed my words as nonsense, reminding me how much I relied on you. Funny, isn't it? How his words seem to carry more weight than mine. But is it really surprising?" Susan continued in a sharp tone. "No one, including you, has the right to dictate my decisions. I'm not denying that I've been lost lately with my priorities scattered, but there's nothing appealing or romantic about that. If I truly believed you were having an affair with him, I wouldn't have hesitated to throw you out of the house. And yet, here we are, without proof of any physical infidelity, and you still place him above us. He may be your best friend, but to me, he is no one, and it's tearing us apart. Just look at where we are now, Susan. What you really need to ask yourself is, why aren't you with him? You always seem happier when you're together, barely noticing my presence. Before that trip with him, everything was only about what the two of you wanted with no regard for my feelings. This isn't love, Susan. It's blatant disrespect. I'm sorry, I really do love and respect you, but you always seemed so unshakable, so reliable. But that's not the full picture, Susan. What we had was a source of strength for me. We were supposed to be a team, supporting each other. Here's a challenge for you. How about not mentioning this conversation to Alexander, though I'm sure he'll ask? Forget it. I've had enough. How about you start showing some respect for our relationship by putting it above your friendship with him? It shouldn't be that hard, Susan. There are 3 of us in this, and I'm tired of being the perpetual outsider. Do you enjoy having 2 men fight for your attention, while the one who truly loves you is left on the sidelines? Well, I'm done. I'm leaving. I'm going to Tracy's. I've been having a great time with her. I can't even remember the last time I felt so understood and cared for. It's the complete opposite of how our marriage has felt lately. We made memories, laughed, drank together. It was the escape I needed. Spending time with my nieces and nephews, watching them grow and explore the world, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. Susan continued to write almost every day, asking when I'd return, clearly confused but trying to keep it together. She began to regret letting everything fall apart and gradually started to see things from my perspective. Sophia, on the other hand, was furious when she found out I'd moved out. Her mother would call her constantly, crying, begging me to come back home. I agreed to meet Sophia for dinner to explain the situation. We chose a nice restaurant, only to find Susan and Alexander already seated together, laughing as if nothing had happened. The moment we saw them, I considered turning around, but Sophia wasn't having it. She stormed over to their table. "How could you?" she demanded. "You call me on the phone crying about how hard it is without Dad, and now here you are laughing with him." Sophia's words hit like a slap. Susan and Alexander froze, her face turning red with shame, while I stood back, calmly watching the scene unfold. But Sophia wasn't done. "I don't blame him for leaving you. You're selfish and completely self-absorbed." Then she turned her fury on Alexander. "And you? What do you think you're doing, trailing after a married woman for years like some pathetic puppy? Grow up and get a life. Don't you see she's just using you to stroke her ego? She doesn't even need to sleep with you to keep you on a short leash." Finally, Sophia turned to me. "Let's go." There was no need for me to say anything. I simply nodded and followed her, leaving Susan, Alexander, and the entire restaurant in stunned silence. I knew this moment was inevitable. Sophia barely made it to the car before breaking down in tears, and I helped her into the passenger seat. It took her a few moments to gather her strength and speak. "I'm sorry, Dad. You were right from the start. I just can't believe she could do that." A week later, Susan stared at her daughter in confusion, still trying to process what was happening. "What are you saying? Your father went to the Caribbean with Madison?" Her voice trembled. "Yes, Mom. And you know what? Maybe you were right all along. If it's okay for you to date someone, why shouldn't Dad have a girlfriend too?" "No," Susan said, shaking her head firmly. "That's not how it works. He can't. He promised me. He was supposed to go with me." "Well, he did say something about it," her daughter responded, "but you were too busy to notice." "We're still married," Susan snapped, anger rising in her. "He can't just take some woman and go on a trip with her. It's wrong." "Mom, calm down. It's not what you think. They're just friends," her daughter sighed. "I understand where you're coming from, but it's different. She's not trying to win him over." She paused, and then asked quietly, "And honestly, why does it bother you so much now? You've kept your distance from Dad for so long, focusing on everything but him." "That's not what I meant," Susan mumbled quietly, her tone softening. "It's just, he was always there, even when I wasn't trying." "Maybe that's the problem," her daughter replied sharply. "Maybe you should start trying, and soon. This trip might be innocent now, but if you keep pushing him away, things will change. There are plenty of women who wouldn't hesitate to get closer to Dad." Her words struck like a blow, leaving Susan speechless, too stunned to respond to her daughter's blunt honesty. Meanwhile, Reese wondered how things had come to this. Madison had supported the plan from the start, the plan originally suggested by Sophia. It was Sophia who thought they needed a break, and Madison had agreed. This trip was a last attempt before a possible divorce. It was simple. 2 friends exploring new places. Madison was easygoing, lighthearted, with a good sense of humor, like a breath of fresh air. During the trip, her optimism became a real comfort to him. She reminded him of what he had been missing with Susan. Yet he was surprised when Susan showed up at the airport upon their return. He had expected an argument, anger, or accusations. But instead, Susan greeted Madison with unexpected politeness, catching both him and Madison off guard. "Madison," Reese began cautiously, "could you leave Susan and me for a moment? Maybe grab a coffee while we talk. We'll go home together afterward." Madison smiled at Susan, wished her well, and left, leaving Reese and Susan alone in the quiet, nearly empty airport waiting area. "I'm sorry, Reese," Susan said softly. "I never really understood how much I hurt you. I missed you, more than I could have imagined." Reese didn't know how to respond. Lately, Alexander had been going through a similar crisis with Sophia, forcing Reese to confront uncomfortable truths in his own marriage. "I wanted you to pay attention to me, Reese," Susan admitted, her voice barely audible. "But instead I pushed you away, and now I see how wrong that was. I was terrified that our marriage, our friendship, was over." Reese sighed, his emotions feeling distant. "This doesn't fix everything, Susan. You've put others before me for too long." "But I care about you," she said, her voice trembling. "I love you." For a moment, Reese almost told her he loved her too, out of habit. But something stopped him. Was that love still there? That deep connection had felt lost for so long. Susan's face darkened, her eyes widening with fear as she sensed his hesitation. "Please, Reese," she pleaded, "give me another chance. We've been married for 27 years. We can't throw all of that away because of some friendship." "It's not just about that," Reese said, shaking his head. "It's about respect, trust, and being a priority. You've been putting me second for years, Susan. I don't know if I can keep living like this." Tears welled up in Susan's eyes. "I've messed everything up. I took you for granted, thinking you'd always be there. That trip to Milan, I convinced myself that you were just jealous, trying to control me, but I was wrong. I wanted to prove I didn't need you." "But how can you call it independence?" Reese replied with quiet sadness. "If you've spent so much time depending on someone else." Her anxiety was evident, and her words sounded nervous, as if she was desperately trying to find the right arguments to convince me. "Please, just give me a month. I'll show you. I'll prove it. I know you don't trust me right now, and I understand that. So let me prove my point. Just 1 month. That's all I'm asking for." She paused for a moment, gathering her thoughts, then continued. "And if everything goes well, if you're happy, we can continue. We can extend it for another month." There was an undeniable desperation in her voice, but despite the hurriedness of her words, there was something sincere in her plea. Against my better judgment, I gave in. Though my expectations were low, I couldn't understand how she could change so drastically. "No, Susan, it's over between us. I've realized I've wasted my years on the wrong woman. Madison is the one with whom I feel calm and at peace. I'm filing for divorce. Besides, I have proof that you cheated on me during your trip to Milan with Alexander." "What? You were spying on me?" "Goodbye, Susan. I'm going to take everything away from you. While you were having fun with Alexander, you forgot about our prenuptial agreement. And one more thing. I know that Sophia is not my biological child. You and your lover are in for huge problems." "Oh, no, no!" Susan screamed after me. It was over. The traitors were facing legal battles, and I moved in with Madison, hoping for a happy future. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.